This past weekend, I had a couple coworkers come by, and one of the guys, both the guys have seen my videos on the blueberry plants. And back when I did my initial video on the blueberry plants, I had a lot of yellow leaves on my blueberry plants. Now, make sure that you do differentiate between newer leaves that are a hint of yellow versus full-blown mature leaves that are dark green or dark, light yellow. Now, back in those days, I had a bad soil composition and I didn't have a lot of acidic soil in my pots. And it's very easy for blueberry plants to take up the acidity in the soil, and then it turns the leaves yellow. Now, that is also what happens too when you overwater your blueberry plant. So you want to make sure that you give it enough days in between watering. You want to water it deep, but you don't want to overwater it on a daily basis. You just got to let that soil slightly dry out, because we tend to overwater things, and that'll cause yellow leaves. But most of the yellow leaf problems in blueberry plants are really associated with the soil being too alkaline, and you want more acidic soil. So how do you do that? Well, back in the day when I had issues with my blueberry plants, what I basically did was I used a chelated solution that would quickly change the leaves and get them dark green again. But nowadays, what I typically do is I top off my soil and kind of work it into the mix with peat moss. Now, I ran out of my peat moss, so what I'm basically doing is taking these old Jiffy peat pellet starter pots. And so, those Jiffy peat pellets, once I'm done using them, what I'll do is I'll save them, and I'll take the plastic sleeve off of this, and then I'll break it up and just rub it in here, and then I'll work in the soil. Now, the soil here is really, really, you can tell the soil is really shallow here, and that's the reason for that is a whole different matter. It's I got a bunch of squirrels here that keep on digging into my blueberry pots here and keep on planting peanuts, and so that's why there's not enough soil in here. I'm going to top off the soil after I work in some more peat moss. But it's amazing how any form of peat moss you have, whether you buy it or use leftover peat pellets that, like I did, you can just work them into the soil. I break them up because they're it's hard for this peat pellet and peat moss to get damp and wet if you don't kind of break it up a little bit. So I break it up, work it into the soil. And I'll be honest, no matter how many times I test the soil, and it doesn't matter how much peat moss I use, I can never seem to get the soil to be overly acidic. So there's been times where 25% of the soil or higher, 25 to 40% of the soil is mostly peat moss. And I take the stick to measure where the pH level is in my soil. And although it shows that it's more acidic, it never shows that it's overly acidic. And so it stays within the range that it should be. And so I'm not too concerned with having the soil too acidic, because I can't, from the testing all these last couple years, I've never had a situation where my soil was overly acidic to the point where it was harmful to the blueberry plants. So I will continue to just keep on adding these Jiffy peat pellets, the ones that I recycle through, and adding them into the soil. Now, one thing nice about making sure that your pots aren't overwatered, or your blueberry plants aren't overwatered, and along with the fact that I've continually added peat moss to my soil and worked it in, is that some of these blueberry plants, I think they're on their third and fourth harvest in terms of I've cycled through this growing season, And this one here is probably on its fourth time that it's set blueberry plants. So although a lot of blueberry plants will only set flowers once, I keep on seeing, somehow I keep on getting them to flower more and setting new blueberries in the same growing cycle. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this process of adding the peat moss to the pots. And I do that literally, I literally do that at least once a month. Probably, I would say every 3 weeks, I'm adding more peat moss to the top, working in the soils. And it really makes the leaves nice and dark green instead of that bright yellow. And then the fact that I make sure that I don't overwater the blueberry plants. Oh, another thing is I do hit it with a little bit of fertilizer. And so I try to make sure to use up some of the old fertilizer I had. So although this is not specific to blueberries, you can buy specific blueberry fertilizer. This one here is just kind of an all-purpose 10, 5, 15 fertilizer. And it works out really good. And so I use the shake and feed. And I hit that a couple times already this season. You don't want to over fertilize, but hit that a couple times along with making sure I don't overwater. And then making sure I add the peat moss to the top of the soil and work it in once every 3 weeks or so. And these blueberry plants are flourishing quite a bit. Well, that's a little bit of an update on the blueberry plants. You guys take care now.